Hey everyone, welcome to another video. The team that we're going to be taking an in-depth look at today is our 2024 Oregon Ducks football team. This team this season has national championship aspirations. We are going to do a complete preview breakdown of their roster, seeing what pieces they lost from last year's team, but what pieces they're adding to the 2024 team. And we're also going to look over their entire 2024 football schedule, going game by game, seeing which games we think they're going to win, lose, and trying to predict their final record for the season, seeing if they make the playoffs. The college football season is just around the corner. We're down to our final week. So these are our final predictions for the 2024 season for the Oregon Ducks. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will respond. 24 Oregon Ducks. This is a team that's just not looking to make the playoffs this season, but they have national championship goals this year. A lot of people are having this team ranked in the top 5 to start the year out. This is a top 5 overall roster. If there was a year for Oregon to finally make the championship and win it, this is it. So Vegas has them coming in at 10.5 wins this year. Don't forget, Pac-12 was dissolved. Oregon and several of those Pac-12 teams have gone over to the Big Ten now. Now they're in a new conference, a conference with the national championship winner from last season in Michigan. So this is a conference that's deep, and there's some really good teams. There's some bruising teams that own the trenches. So just a little bit of a different pace of game that the Ducks will now have to get used to. They are going from a more spread out conference to a running downhill line of scrimmage conference. But this team is built to do it. This is a top 5 roster. They're built on both sides of the ball, but they're new to the Big Ten. So there's going to be a couple different things that they're going to have to get used to playing, but they're returning a top 10 offense from last season, a top 10 defense from last season. A very well-rounded team. Dan Lanning has been going beast mode in the portal and on recruiting. He's been bringing in top 10 classes for both of them. So this roster is as deep as anyone at every single position, especially in the skilled positions. Bo Nix, Heisman finalist last season. I think his completion percentage was 78% last season. He's now gone to the NFL, but they're bringing in the transfer Dillon Gabriel from Oklahoma. He is going to prosper in Will Stein's offense. He can run, he can throw it. He's basically a carbon copy of Bo Nix, and I think he's going to put up the same exact production as him. I don't think there's going to be any step back at all from an offense that averaged 45 points per game last season. He's getting a lot of Heisman hype. A lot of Vegas betting sites have him as the Heisman front runner preseason. So that just lets you know he's probably throwing 35, 40 touchdowns and probably running for 10 or 15 touchdowns. Probably going to put up 5 to 5,500 total yards of offense. So the offense, no steps back. Wide receiver, Walker's back. They have Holden, Brian Jr., and Dan Lanning also brought in 5-star transfer Evan Stewart from the Aggies. This team is loaded, and half the offensive line is coming back. Oregon is very strong in the trenches. Anyone from the Big Ten, don't think that just because this is a Pac-12 team that you're going to steamroll them in the trenches. I in no way see that happening. This team is going to surprise you with how well they're built at the line of scrimmage. Now, the defense did lose a couple starters, but the cupboard's far from empty. They have the transfer Caldwell coming over from Houston. They have Birch. They have Ugalele. They have Purchase. They have the linebackers, Jacobs, Bossa. They're both back. They're adding in Jackson, Nixon. The secondary is going to see some new faces with Muhammad and Alexander playing alongside Florence and Reed, but they're going to adapt just fine. As I mentioned several times, this team is loaded, and they are ready to compete in the Big Ten and compete for the national champion right now. So let's take a look at this schedule. They kick things off Saturday, August 31st versus Idaho. That's obviously going to be a win there, and I think they're really going to open up the floodgates and announce to the world that they're here for the 2024 season. They're going to win that one. Let's put it at a 58-10, and they're 1-0. Saturday, September 7th versus Boise State. This is actually a pretty competitive team. Do not underestimate Boise State. They have a 5-star quarterback transferring in. They won 10 games last season. They had as well of a second half of the season as anyone, and they're actually a really good team. Playing Boise, it's always rough. Props to them for scheduling the out-of-conference game with also a more difficult regular season schedule, but I have Oregon winning it. I have them winning this one 38-24, and they're 2-0. Saturday, September 14th at Oregon State, one of the old Pac-12 teams they used to play. Their in-state rival. This game's going to have a lot of hype, and I'm glad that they're keeping the rivalry game, even with the Pac-12 getting dissolved. But Oregon State lost everyone. Jonathan Smith, he's off to Michigan State. They lost DJU. They lost Damian Martinez. So they're definitely going to be a massive talent gap here. Let's put this game at an Oregon win. It's going to be, I'm going to put it high. I'm going to put it at 50-17, and they're 3-0. Then Saturday, September 28th at UCLA, another road game across the country, technically Big Ten standard-wise. For UCLA, Chip Kelly's now at Ohio State. They lost their 5-star quarterback. This entire team was decimated. Massive talent advantage here for Oregon. They're going to beat the Bruins. Let's put it at a 48-20 game. They're 4-0. Saturday, October 5th versus Michigan State. This is where Jonathan Smith went to. They have a 5-star quarterback transferring in, but they lost almost their entire team to the transfer portal. They got completely raided. It's a complete roster overhaul. So Oregon's going to win this one. Let's say it's going to be 48-17. They're 5-0. Saturday, October 12th versus Ohio State, the big game. This is one of the top 3 games of the season, if not the number 1 game of the season. The Buckeyes could be number 1 at this point. Oregon could be 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's a top 5 matchup either way with both of these teams playing. And they're basically both playing for Big Ten props. Who's in charge of the Big Ten? You have one of the older teams of the Big Ten, and then you have the newcomer. But Ohio State is very talented. That's a top 2 or 3 roster as well. They're loaded. You have Howard at quarterback coming in. You have Henderson at running back. You have Quinton Junkins transferring over at running back. You have Egba at wide receiver. You have Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star at wide receiver. You have 8 starters back on defense from the number 3 defense last year. They're probably going to have the number 1 defense this season. And this game's at home for the Ducks, but I'm going to go with Ohio State winning it. Don't get upset about that. I'm just basing that off of Ohio State's defense traveling with them. Chip Kelly, the OG, the old Oregon coach, knowing how to call good offensive games. I have Ohio State winning this one, but I think there's going to be a rematch, and it's hard to beat the same team twice. If Ohio State and Oregon play in the Big Ten championship, whoever wins that first one's probably going to drop the second one. But anyways, I have Ohio State winning that one in a close one, 33-28. Oregon's 5-1. Then after that, they're at Purdue, October 19th. Look for them to rebound here, put a beat down on them, 55-13. They're 6-1. Then Saturday, October 26th versus Illinois. The Fighting Illini have taken a massive step back the last 2 seasons. The Ducks are going to beat them pretty bad. Let's say it's going to be 42-17, and they're 7-1. Saturday, November 2nd at Michigan. This is a tough game going to the Big House, but Michigan is the national defending champion, but they lost their entire team. J.J. McCarthy's gone. Harbaugh's gone. Sharon Moore takes over as the head coach. They only have 1 starter back on offense. Their defense, though, is still going to be a top 10 defense, and they're going to own the trenches. But I think by this point, Oregon has shown they can take blows in the trenches. They can compete with anyone at both lines of scrimmages. I have them going to Michigan and winning this one, but it's going to be a lower scoring game. Let's say 28-24, and they're 8-1. Saturday, November 9th versus Maryland. They're going to beat them. It's going to be a 45-20 game, and they're 9-1. Saturday, November 16th at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's going to be tough this year. You have Luke Fickell. This is their 7 or 8 win squad. You have Phil Longo as the offensive coordinator. Tyler Van Dyke transferring in. They had a top 25 defense last season, bringing back a lot of starters. But Oregon's going to beat them as long as they're keeping their eye on the prize. Don't take these games for granted. They're going to win this one 35-20, and they're 10-1. Final game of the season, Saturday, November 30th versus Washington. The Huskies went to the national championship last season, but they lost their entire team, including their coach. Deboer has gone off to Alabama. You have Penix. You have Odunze. They're both off to the NFL. You have Will Rogers transferring in as the quarterback. You have Fish coming in from Arizona. Massive talent overhaul there. Oregon's going to finish the year with a massive win, 50-20, finishing the regular season 11-1. I have Oregon going to the Big Ten Championship. I have them rematching it versus Ohio State. They're making the playoffs. No matter who wins the Big Ten Championship, the loser's going to get in the playoffs because they're probably going to have one loss coming out of the Big Ten, so they're in. But you want to win the conference because you want that bye week round one for the playoffs. As I mentioned, I have Oregon dropping the first one, but it's hard to beat them twice. They might win that second one and win the Big Ten. So that's our breakdown of the 2024 Oregon Ducks football team. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will respond. Thanks.